Hey guys, today's guest is someone whose work doesn't always fit into a traditional box. And that's exactly why I wanted to have this conversation. You know me, I don't like traditional anything. Jess Larsen is the founder of Beyond Purpose Journeys, where she creates intimate retreat experiences designed to help women slow down, reconnect with themselves, and start listening to what's been there all along. Her path wasn't linear, much like many of us. She started in social work, supporting teenagers navigating substance abuse and major life challenges. And then she spent years in the fitness world helping people push past physical and mental limits. And somewhere along the way, after pouring into everyone else, she realized it was time to turn inward and do that work on herself. Today, her work is less about fixing and more about creating space for honesty, for reflection, and for people to uncover what's already within them. We're also going to talk about something that a lot of people are curious about, and I am super, super stoked about. But we don't always fully understand it. So, we're going to talk about microdosing and what she's learned from the women that she works with and from her process. Jess, I'm so excited and happy to have you here. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yay!
Yay.
This is where I'm going to insert clapping sounds. Yay! Um,
Yay.
so I am super excited about this because I love the work that you're doing. I think it's so important. So many women, especially our corporate girlies, have a very hard time slowing down. They're continuously put into pressure scenarios. They're continuously running different teams and dealing with their families and doing all the things, and are very rarely dealing with their own stuff or looking inward or any of that. So I'm really excited to talk to you about that. But I'm also really excited about the microdosing conversation because I think so many people kind of are afraid to even say microdosing. Oh my goodness. Oh, scandalous. And I think that it's just something that people have questions about. It's just a lack of knowledge, is a lack of understanding. So I'm super excited to get there. But before all that, before we get into all that, I always start with the same question, and that really is, who were you growing up? What was young Jess like?
Young Jess was like a 40-year-old personality shoved in a small little body. I used to
Love
always
it.
joke like once I got to 40, I was like, now it's socially acceptable for me to act like this. Um yeah, I don't know, I was a pretty serious child. I don't know where that came from. My parents weren't super serious. My sister was a total free spirit, but I was serious. I was by the book. I liked rules. I liked order. I liked being the boss from a very young age. So, any make believe I was the teacher or, whatever authority was in charge. But yeah, I liked structure and order, and that was my comfort zone.
Well, and do you think that, like, just looking back at your childhood and thinking about that, has it changed? Did you hit 40 and you were able to, like, revert and be more childlike, or has it just
I mean,
consistently stayed the
yeah.
same?
Yes and no. So maybe not right at 40, but actually getting more into this work. And, I kind of joke that I blew up my life at one point and that required a reset of sorts. And that wasn't a reset as an adult. It was like, hey, wait a minute, what did I used to like? And not being able to remember that too much. I just don't remember a lot of childhood. I mean, I remember little bits and pieces. I remember, the things that were repetitive, like we would go to the beach every Sunday or, we would go camping and, I slept in the back of the boat because it was hot outside. So we didn't need a tent. And so there are certain things that I remember, but overall, there's so much that is just kind of faded away.
I totally feel you on the mini adult because I was very much the same way as a kid. I wanted to sit with the adults, talk with the adults. I was just talking to my aunt the other day, and she was like joking and laughing about what a goofy kid I was because I wasn't the one like out like, let's go do this. I was like, let me sit with the adults and see what they're saying.
Yeah.
So
I always kind of
I
wanted
had the
to.
same affliction.
Yeah. I wanted to kind of sit in and a little bit eavesdrop on the adults. And then I always wanted the babies. Like, I'd act like the mom, like, give me the baby. I know how to take care of the baby. I was like 8. I'm like, give me the baby. I can do all the things. And so I would just take care of all of the small little kids that couldn't talk back. I'd be like, those are my people. Let's go.
Well, that actually is a perfect segue into my first question into who you are, all of the good stuff, is that you spent so much of your life helping others from social work to fitness to what you're doing now. When you look back, and maybe this baby memory is part of that, but when you look back, do you feel like that was always part of who you were?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I've always been in that like mothering, nurturing. I wanted to be a teacher, I wanted to be a mom, I wanted to be a caretaker of sorts. So that has always been around. I mean, even my social work job, it was taking care of teenagers who were becoming parents. So it was like, not only did I take care of the teenagers, I took care of their babies as well. And so, yeah, it was just kind of always a theme. And, when I got into fitness, I look at that and there was so much more for me than just the body. Because I ran a kickboxing studio, it was a lot about like getting some emotion out, getting some anger out, just moving things. And I didn't really realize it as much at the time. But, I now say like, I'll work with you from the inside out or the outside in. It doesn't matter where we start. But, a lot of times people would come to me because they didn't like the way they looked. And we would talk more about like, well, how does it feel to hit this? And how does it feel when you're getting stronger? And how does it feel? It was feel all the way along. And their outsides started to match the work they were actually doing on the insides.
Interesting. And do you think that you were just always like that? Like there was never you were always just taking care of people. There was never a time when you weren't like that.
Yeah, I think that was just my natural tendency. It just was. I mean, all kids have something, right? We can all I always joke that no child gets out of childhood unscathed without trauma and that
True.
sort of thing. And so, for me and whatever came up, when I was younger, it was just the way that I would handle things. It was I liked to control things, I liked to nurture, I liked to take care, then I could control the environment that I was in. And so, if I could control the environment that I was in, it was less likely to feel chaotic to me. So I think I just continued that as a pattern that emerged very young as something that just served me well. And then I was constantly reinforced for it, like, oh, you're good at this. Keep going. Or, hey, I really appreciate that. Keep going. When I'm in the fitness industry and people are getting results, there was a lot of reinforcement of, hey, you're doing a good job. And so I'm like, I'm just taking care of people. It's not that
And
hard.
and also in fitness specifically, like physically see the results. Like
Right.
if somebody mentally or
Yes.
emotionally feels better, you can't necessarily sometimes you can see it from their
Right.
demeanor or
Sometimes.
their countenance, but like physically in fitness, you're literally saying you're like
Right.
you dropped
Yeah.
50 pounds or you've got a
Yeah,
ton of
look
muscle
at you.
now.
Yes, yes. So it was fun, and in fitness, you're celebrating people. So you can start with the outward, but so much, I mean, the only way that that stays off is if you've done some internal work as well. And so, to congratulate somebody, to celebrate their win is exciting. I mean, I've always loved to be around women. So when I was in fitness, you know, I would say 85%, 90% of my member base was female. And so really just being surrounded with women, encouraging them, cheering them on, it just felt good. And so that has always been, I think, something that has been a part of me starting at a young age.
You shared that there came a point where you realized you had done everything for everyone else, and I think that's something so many women listening could relate to, but that you needed to turn it inward. So, what was happening in your life at the time that made you realize something had to change, or was there something specific that, like, you went, "Holy shit, like, I need to do this for me now. I've done
Yeah.
everything for everybody
Yeah.
else."
It's funny because it's both. It was I got to a point working at the kickboxing studio that I was managing that I just knew I had taught my team everything I could teach them. And there wasn't really much beyond that. Like, I just don't know what else I can teach these guys. I think I've kind of maxed out, but there was something underlying. There was some stuff going on with the staff that I really, honestly, looking back, could not control. And so, for somebody who likes to control and somebody who likes to do things a certain way, and I'm used to winning, and this team was working really well together, and we're celebrating and we're successful, and it was a really tight knit team, but I could feel some dynamics slipping out of my control, and there was nothing I could actually do about it. and that was fine. And I actually worked for my sister-in-law at the time. She was the owner, and we worked great together. I mean, we built such a beautiful studio together. But the agreement was when one of us was done, we were both done. And so when I called it, it was no problem. But then the piece that was kind of feeling out of control started getting bigger. And because, at that time, it just didn't feel good. And I didn't have like the wherewithal to actually name everything, to be able to see it. This is all in hindsight that I left the job before we were ready to sell. I basically got upset with the conversation and pretty much said, screw it, I'm out. And looking back, I think that's the only way I could have left that job because I loved it so much. I loved who I worked with. I loved who I worked for. I loved my members, everything. But there was this pull in me that I knew it was done. And really, the only way I knew how to get out was to blow it up. And so I did. I quit on a whim. I didn't tell anybody why. I just said, I'm out of here. It's time to move on. And I did that. And so it wasn't until months and even, a year or two later that I started looking back at that was the only way I was going to go. I wasn't going to go out nicely. I wasn't going to go out all, because I would have wanted to stay. The reality is if I had left the way that I thought I wanted to leave, I would have never left. I would have been like, it's my baby. I want to stay there. And so, yeah, looking back, I just had to walk away from all of it, from everything I knew. And then it was about a year later, because I stayed in the fitness industry still. I still was consulting. I was still helping other fitness studios. But it was about a year later that I kind of just looked around and was like, what do I even like? Who did I used to be? And I kept just going back. Who was I before the fitness studio? Well, I was a stay-at-home mom. Who was I before a stay-at-home mom? Well, I was a social worker. Who was I? And I just kept going back and back and back, and I couldn't get back to who I was. I
Mm.
only had record of what I was. And I think at, I don't know, 45 years old, 43, 45, something like that, um, that was a little shocking to me to not be able to have an identity other than what I did for others.
Well, and I think that is so true of so many women. We get so deep into our career and our family and what we do, what we're doing, and our person, who we are, is like an afterthought, is something that we kind of dismiss, and maybe even subconsciously, maybe we don't intentionally do that. We're just so busy taking care of everyone else, handling,
Mhm.
becoming this corporate whoever we are, whatever it is, like I said,
Right.
whether it's work, whether it's family. I think so many women do that and then in the process lose themselves and or get to 45 and go, "Who the hell am I? Like, what
Yeah,
am I doing? Like, I'm not just this
exactly.
job. What is my identity without the job or without the role of mother or without the whatever role, fill in the blank."
Right. Yeah. Fill it in. It was like I just kept going back and back and back. Well, okay, well, I was this, but before that I was this. And it was just a definition of a job or a role.
You talked about stepping away from roles, not just the fitness roles, but all the others, mom, wife, career, and really asking who you were underneath all of it. And that's really a scary place. I think it's probably why a lot of people keep themselves busy because it is such a scary place for people
Right.
to go and to really ask the question. So what did that process actually look like and feel like for you? What did it feel like in the moment? Because maybe you had never ever asked these things or done or looked at it.
Yeah, I hadn't asked myself the right question, right? I kept trying therapy, but I used to be a social worker. So I kind of felt like I knew the questions that were going to be asked when I went into therapy. And, as the overachiever, I'd be like, I know how to answer this question. I know what they want to hear, which is such a waste, right? It's such a waste of therapy. And so, really putting myself in situations and areas where I could actually be mentored instead of going in to traditional therapy was super helpful. And being asked questions like, well, who are you without that? It's kind of shocking. And to sit there and say, I don't actually know. Okay, well, what does that feel like? And also being so disconnected from my body at that point. Like, I don't even understand your question. What do you mean? What do I feel like? I don't understand. Because again, I had just been attached to all of these different roles, all of these different titles, all of these different jobs. And there came a point when I really just, I was working so heavily on myself. I mean, this was, very easily a 2-year process of just every day something new, of just working on myself, of having somebody say to me, like, you're controlling. And it's like, listen, I can say that about myself, but you cannot say that about me. And being
How
like,
dare you?
ma'am, I don't think that you understand, and me in my head going, I'm not controlling, but I do it this way because, and she's like, that's controlling. I hate to tell you. Um, but what was said to me is like, you're controlling and you set it up this way. And I was like, shit. Okay.
Say what?
And exactly, like, all right. And somehow that just hit home, that I had somehow orchestrated my life this way. And that I was very good at controlling everything, like controlling everything for the family, controlling everything for the kids, setting up the doctor's appointments. These are all things that moms do, right? You set up the doctor's appointments, you make sure that the kids' grades are good, you have the conversations, you go to all the appointments, whatever that means. But the reality is these kids came to me, and they're like, at the time I was having this realization, they were late teenagers, and now they're 17 and 20. They came to me perfectly whole. They came to me perfectly fine as they are. I don't need to control anything in them except actually just foster who they are. And so I remember actually having a conversation with my family. I sat everybody down and I was like, listen, news to you guys, I'm controlling. And they were like, what? Um,
Tell me
no,
something I
not
don't know,
you.
Mom.
Exactly. And I said, listen, I trust you guys to do whatever it is that you need to do. I trust you guys to lead yourself. I trust you guys to lead your own life. And I'm here for the guidance of it all. But I need to step back in the ways that I've been showing up, because when you're used to overfunctioning, high achieving, do, it just becomes almost like the work, right? Like when you go to a job and you're achieving. I wasn't looking to achieve with these kids or with my family. And so I needed to really detach from that mentality of, I'm a high achieving mother, because I'm not. I'm just guiding these two souls as they live in my house for a few years, for 18 years.
Well, and I think that's it's a great way to protect yourself, right? If you're in control of everything, then nobody has the ability to hurt you or disappoint you
Right.
or let you down. It's like it makes sense, and I think a lot of women do that, and I think that probably your mentor and or therapist that you went in during this process was probably like, yeah, this is pretty common. Like this is
Right.
what I see all the time, you know?
Yes.
Because again,
Yeah.
if you're controlling everything, then less chances of someone disappointing you, less
Right.
chances of someone, hurting you, all of that. So I think that's
Right.
a pretty common thing.
Yeah, it's pretty common, but what's so funny is like, what did I think was going to happen? I think that's the thing that we don't ask ourselves enough. Like, I can control it so it can all work out my way. Or what if I don't control it? Could it work out better? And I don't think that we even allow ourselves, we're very willing to go to worst case scenario, but how often are we willing to go to best case scenario? And
Yeah,
so
and
that's really
yeah,
the
and the
question I had to start
fear.
asking, is like, how could it get for my kids, for my relationship with them, for my marriage, for our family as a whole, if I just allow best case scenario to play out?
Yeah, I mean, it's like it's again the fear of the unknown. We all talk about this. Sometimes we get stagnant or stuck in general because with a crappy job or a crappy spouse or a crappy whatever. And it's because the fear of the unknown of what if it was amazing is
Right.
scarier than the crap we're sitting in that we're like, I know what this is. So
Right.
I'm going to stay here because it's less scary than, oh my
Right.
gosh, I don't know what the exact
Yeah.
outcome is going to be if
But
I
what
do it the
happens
other
when you
way.
face fear?
Hmm.
That's something that we don't practice enough. We don't create safe spaces enough to say, like, okay, let's go ahead and sit with the fear. There's ways to sit with it even safely. Like, you don't have to let everything play out. You can just actually sit with yourself and say, all right, what's the worst that's going to happen? What's also the best that could happen? And I think if we give ourselves that space to even do that, we're much more willing, rather than the automatic assumption, which is what you were just saying, the fear. That's just almost like automatic for all of us. But if
Mhm.
we're more purposeful, we can actually look at the other side.
You said it was like a 2-year process. Was there some and that you preferred a mentor over a counselor or,
I
something to
tried
that effect, but
both.
what did that look like? I mean, for somebody that's listening that's in that space right now,
Yeah.
do you have any, suggestions or tips of, like, "This is where I started," or, "This is how I found something that worked for me." Is there anything like tips or tricks that you can think of that maybe helped you get through that 2-year process?
Yeah. I mean, for me, honestly, it was plant medicine that helped with that. I started with therapy. I really and it was helpful to a point, but it didn't push me into pure discomfort, which is actually what I needed. It wasn't, I mean, it probably just wasn't the best fit. I mean, there are wonderful therapists out there. And but you have to find the fit that works for you. And for me, I just didn't find somebody that could really push me into that, space of discomfort to where I was willing to look at myself. And so I just knew when I couldn't remember everything that I used to like, and when I felt very detached from my own body, like I could not feel things in me. I didn't cry. I didn't feel surprise. Like normal emotions that come up in people, it just felt blank in me. And so I knew there was something else I needed to do. And I really just felt like, well, what else is there? And I think it was, I don't know, it was probably right around COVID, maybe a little bit after, where there were some plant medicine documentaries and I was watching them. I'm like, you know what? Let's do that. Let's do that. That's totally not my style. It's completely different. Let me go see if that can't help open my eyes to what else there is for me. If I can't remember who I was, then maybe I can figure out who I am.
Your work today is really all about that, is about holding space, not fixing, not solving, but helping people uncover what's already there, like you talked about doing for yourself. So, how do you explain what you do to someone who's never experienced that type of work? So the Jess from 2 years,
Right.
from before that 2 years, how do you explain that
Yeah.
type of work to them?
I mean, I usually start with, telling them my experience, which was I had this mentality, as I think a lot of high functioning overachievers do, of like, give me the list and let me just checklist the shit out of this and it'll be handled. So I'll go to the retreat, I leave, I get there on a Monday, I'll be home by Thursday, I'll have my list, I'll do all of the things, I'll check it off, and then I will be healed. Now, that's not what I thought in the moment, but looking back, that is 1000% what I thought was going to happen. And that is not what happened. And so I thought I
I
could
love it though that you
just,
had a plan. You were in control of the
yeah. I
plan.
was like, yeah, yes, I was gonna tell these mushrooms, tell me what to do. I'll do the things and then we'll be good, right? And so that's really how I thought about it. And I wasn't prepared. I wasn't ready for this retreat. In my head, I was. And so it took quite a bit of time for me to kind of understand the lessons, to slow down. I mean, that was the biggest lesson in all of 2 years, is really just to slow down so that I can listen, so that I can understand. But when I talk to women now, I simply just tell them my story. Like, the goal is not to heal. Like, you're never going to be fully healed. There's no such thing. We all have our stuff, and that's what makes us us. And so I generally ask people, well, what is it that you want? And then we work from there. And if we can slow down in the conversation, most of the women are, you know, very ready for this, even if they don't have an idea or an experience. Usually I can just explain that. For me, the best way I should say to explain it is, it's a slight form of detachment. It's like coming in with a problem or a trauma, or maybe it's just even a creative idea that you just feel blocked around, like you just feel stuck. If you could imagine it like a suitcase, and you're going to come into a space that I'll create for you, and I want you to bring your suitcase and I just want you to set it down. And then as we work together through multiple different modalities, you're just going to back up from this little piece of luggage. And what you're going to be able to do is walk all the way around it, which you couldn't do before. You could only look at it from the angle of you holding it. But now you're going to look at it from all different angles. And oftentimes, when you can detach and look at your issue, whatever it is, from a different angle, from a different lens, and the lack of attachment to it, you tend to have a little bit of an aha moment. Like, maybe it's not that serious. Maybe it's not. Maybe it is, but actually I have a different way of looking at it and I feel better about that. And it's just giving people permission to not grasp so tightly onto whatever it is they're attaching to.
I love that. I love that idea of putting down the suitcase and looking at it from a bunch of different angles, because I think we are so fixated on, especially with the political climate and just especially the way the world is right now, we're so fixated on just holding on tight to our opinion, to our perception of how something is or should be, and the angle that we're looking at it. And gosh, if everybody could just put their suitcase down and just be open enough to walk around it and look at things from a different point of view, I think that would be like so amazing for the entire world, but
Right.
specifically for the ladies that are listening. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you love this conversation as much as I did. And we're not done yet. This continues in part 2, so make sure you come back and join us there. That's a wrap on today's episode of Carrie, It's Not That Serious. If this conversation resonated, subscribe and share it with a woman in power in your life. You can find more conversations, more community, and all the fun INTS merch you love at itsnotthatserious.com. We're building something meaningful here, and I'm so glad you're a part of it. Until next time, remember, it's not that serious.